Welcome to another explainer. So today we are looking at an absolute paradigm shift in how we actually approach language acquisition. Seriously, think about that universal frustration of learning English for a decade. Millions of people spend years, literally years, memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists, right? Yet when they travel abroad or step into a global business meeting, they just freeze up. They can't order a coffee, and they definitely can't pitch a complex idea. For decades, we've treated learning English like this tedious chore. A subject to memorize, a test to pass, a certificate to just hang on the wall. But what if we completely dismantled that entire idea? What if, instead of studying a language, you actually stepped inside an ecosystem designed to make you live it? Well, today we're unpacking the LHEEH English Experience Hub, or LHEEH for short. It's a new generation model that fundamentally changes what it means to become fluent, and it might just be the definitive solution to that age-old frustration.
Here is our quick structural roadmap for today. First, we'll cover positioning the new model. Second, the core differences. Third, the 4 value pillars. Fourth, the experience ecosystem. And finally, we'll wrap up with the 5P operating philosophy.
I want to kick things off by challenging you with a pivotal question directly from our source material because it fundamentally alters our whole mindset. Usually people ask things like, how many English courses have you taken? Or, hey, what's your IELTS score? We really need to stop asking those questions. The only question that actually matters is, what have you used English to achieve? I mean, have you collaborated to build a functioning robot using English as your medium? Have you pitched a startup idea to investors? Have you resolved a complex problem or made a lifelong friend? This completely pivots us away from that outdated, test-centric mindset and forces us to look at the actual real-world utility of the language.
And that brings us to the core philosophy anchoring this entire model. Don't just learn English, live it, experience it, grow with it. We really have to dive into the psychology of living it. Language acquisition happens most naturally when the human brain stops treating it as some secret code to be cracked or a puzzle to be solved. When English is treated as a necessary tool for survival, creation, and connection, your brain just absorbs it subconsciously. We're no longer talking about a subject to study here. We're talking about an active, daily tool to experience life, create amazing ideas, and build a thriving career.
Okay, Section 1, Positioning the New Model.
So, the LHEEH English Experience Hub is explicitly not your traditional language center. There are no short-term cram session courses here. Instead, it's positioned as a long-term member community. It's essentially a habitat. Think about the massive difference between moving to an English-speaking country for total immersion versus, say, going to a sterile classroom twice a week. In a classroom setting, that forgetting curve is just massive because you leave the room and you stop using the language. But in a habitat, English is the oxygen of your daily communication, creativity, and work. It seamlessly merges experience learning, learning by doing, and community-based learning right into one unified environment.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core differences.
Let's walk through the really stark contrast between the traditional world of language education and this new generation ecosystem. In the old world, you're simply a customer buying a finite course, and when that course ends, you're basically on your own. In the LHEE model, you're joining an experiential environment that walks alongside you throughout your entire personal and professional development. We are moving away from those fixed, rigid classes led by a teacher at the front of a room towards a highly dynamic, learner-centered community membership. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, the ultimate goal completely shifts. This isn't about grinding endlessly for a certificate. It's about building tangible competency. We're transitioning from learning just to pass a test to learning to actually live, work, and integrate on a global scale.
That brings us to Section 3, 4 value pillars.
The mechanics of this model rely on the profound synergy between 4 foundational elements. First up, you have the experiential environment, where English is the medium for real-world activities. Second is cutting-edge AI technology. Third, a vibrant learning community. And fourth, comprehensive development. The real brilliance here is how all these pieces connect. The AI technology directly fuels and prepares you for the experiential environment. And it's the learning community that acts as the real catalyst, ensuring your comprehensive development goes way, way beyond just memorizing vocabulary. You aren't growing in isolation here. You are actively collaborating, developing teamwork, critical thinking, and professional skills all at the exact same time.
Let's talk about the specific role of AI in this ecosystem, because it is an absolute game changer. This goes so far beyond a simple grammar check. Just imagine you have a really complex robotics workshop scheduled for tomorrow. The AI-powered platform analyzes your current proficiency and feeds you exactly the technical vocabulary you're going to need to actively contribute to your team. It acts as a 24/7 speaking coach, practicing with you in real time before you even set foot in the physical hub. It meticulously tracks your individual progress, ensuring that even though you're part of a massive community, your learning path remains entirely customized to your specific goals and skill level.
Which leads perfectly into Section 4, the Experience Ecosystem.
Let's actually take a tour of how these abstract values manifest in reality, starting with the English Cafe and Networking Zone. Now, this isn't just about grabbing a quick cup of coffee. It's a very deliberate pedagogical choice. There's a well-documented psychological concept known as the affective filter. Basically, when a learner's anxiety is high, like in a formal, super quiet classroom where they're terrified of making mistakes, language absorption drops to almost zero. But when anxiety is low, in a relaxed, open space dedicated to natural communication, absorption is at its absolute highest. This zone deliberately strips away all that pressure, replacing it with spontaneous discussions, reading, and networking.
Next, we step into the Innovation and Experience Hub, and this is the space where learning by doing truly comes alive. This area completely capitalizes on the psychological flow state. Think about it. When you're trying to wire a robot, build an AI model, or solve a really tricky design problem in a STEAM workshop, your brain is entirely focused on the physical task at hand. And because of that intense focus, English naturally becomes a secondary, subconscious processing tool. You aren't reading about technology in some dry textbook, you're physically building and creating things. This represents a massive leap from rote memorization, actually wiring the language deeply into your cognitive processes. As you advance, you enter the Project and Career Hub, and this directly tackles one of the biggest socioeconomic issues we face today, the fresh graduate problem. Every single year, millions of students graduate with degrees but severely lack real-world collaborative skills. Well, this hub bridges that gap. Here, English becomes your professional working language. You're developing startup ideas, you're working in a content studio, you're engaging in career development labs, you're even connecting directly with enterprise businesses. The impact here is profound. This hub isn't just teaching a language, it is actively creating ready-to-deploy global citizens who can immediately add value to the workforce. Finally, wrapping around all of these physical spaces is the Digital English Platform. This connects your entire experience and explains the why behind the ecosystem's tracking. It's where your AI speaking coach lives. But honestly, more importantly, it's where you build your e-portfolio. And the e-portfolio does something really incredible. It makes your soft skills, your project history, and your language proficiency tangible to future employers. It takes all that invisible progress, like how well you pitched a startup or led a robotics team, and turns it into verifiable data and digital badges that you can confidently carry right into your career.
And now for our final piece, Section 5, the 5P operating philosophy.
The engine driving this entire ecosystem is a continuous loop of learning and application known as the 5P philosophy. Let's actually walk through this cycle using a specific, real-world scenario. Let's say you want to host a podcast in the media studio. First, you prepare your script and your vocabulary using your personalized AI tools. Second, you practice informally by just bouncing your ideas off other members within the community. Third, you participate by stepping into the studio and setting up the technical gear. Fourth, you perform. You actually record and broadcast that podcast entirely in English. See what happened there? You have taken knowledge and immediately transformed it into real action.
And that brings us to the final P, progress. You know, traditional education is so often this straight line that just ends in a cliff. You take a final exam and then you just forget everything you ever memorized. The 5P model, however, is much more like a spiral staircase. When you reach the progress stage, the system records your performance, it awards you skill badges, and updates your digital portfolio. But it doesn't stop there. Because it's a spiral, hitting progress immediately recommends your next prepare step at a slightly higher level of complexity. It guarantees this sustainable, continuous growth without ever hitting a dead end.
To summarize the core message we've unpacked today from our sources, the LHEEH English Experience Hub is fundamentally disrupting how we look at education. If we widen the lens just a bit, we see that this model isn't just changing how an individual learns a language. It's actively creating a blueprint for how institutions can produce a highly capable, globally integrated workforce. By flat-out refusing to be just another language center, it transforms English into a living language of deep connection, boundless creativity, and true professional integration.
So, here's my question for you. Are you still grinding away and memorizing flashcards just to pass a test? Or are you ready to actually step out, use the language to build something real, and truly live in English? Really think about that. The paradigm is shifting, and the tools to experience it are already right here. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.